please share with us whatever you would like to share about your journey with Swami.
Sai Ram, everyone. Today I'd like to share a story about my first trip to see Swami as an adult. And at that time I was a young man on a spiritual quest, and I was pretty serious about spirituality, and I had been undertaking a lot of spiritual practices. Of course, I grew up with Swami. He was always God to me growing up, but it was God in a certain way that your parents had told you that he was God, and you kind of believed it, but you had not done your own confirmation process as an adult. And so this process was kind of slated for this trip, whether I knew it or not. And one of the things that was particularly interesting to me was whether Swami was really omniscient. Because it's easy to say, this is omniscience and this is God, and you can say these things very easily, but what does it mean? And have you really looked at that? And I don't know if you want to say tested it, but you could. You could say, have you tested to see if that's the case? And Swami is, of course, the most gracious and the most loving to have put up with all the tests that many people put him to, and many times would jump through hoops for people, which is staggering in its level of humility and love and compassion. And for whatever reason, on this trip, he also likewise engaged in a game with me. And so the game worked like this. I had gathered much knowledge from many of those who had come before, and having grown up in the center, I had heard thousands of Swami stories, and I wanted to utilize one of the tips, which was this. I had been told that anytime Swami is in a room, or anytime Swami is in the vicinity, if you can even see him, you can ask him a question in your mind, and he may provide an answer in the following manner. You can say, Swami, I have this question or dilemma. If the answer is yes, could you brush your hair? And he might brush his hair and show you that that was the correct answer. And I thought, I want to try that, but I don't want to ask him to brush his hair or touch his nose or something like that. At this stage, that was my thinking. I wanted it to be something that he would never do in his normal way of motion, because I really wanted to know, is he really omniscient? And I didn't want any false positives, getting in the way. Now, as many of you know, anyone who's been to Prasanthi Nilayam, on each side of the veranda there sit, or actually stand, 2 lions. And they look like they're guarding everything. And when Swami would go in to the interview room, inevitably he would pass by the lion that was on the left side of the veranda, or if you're looking from the audience, it would be the right side of the veranda. He would often pass right by that lion, and I had kind of noticed that, but I didn't think too much of it. And then one day he was walking in, and I saw him approaching this lion. And into my mind jumped, well, this is your chance. The most random thing you can think of is there. And so quickly I formulated a question in my mind. I said, Swami, if the answer to this question is yes, then touch the lion's head as you pass. Well, Swami, sure enough, reached out and touched the lion's head. Just like that. There were no angels calling. There were no bells ringing. No rockets in the sky. But in that moment, I went into total shock, because I had told no one about this. I told no one that I was going to do this. I had told no one that I was going to ask him to touch the lion's head. I didn't even know until moments before it happened. And when Swami touched that lion's head, it kind of changed a reality for me. Or so I thought. For the most part it did. But once again, this mind jumped up and said, after a while, it said, that was pretty impressive. It could have been a coincidence. And I'm like, come on, it couldn't have been a coincidence. There's no way. And I said, yeah, you're probably right. It probably couldn't have been, but maybe it was. I'm not sure you can say he's omniscient yet. And I'm like, oh, come on. But after a while, I realized that I couldn't throw off that possibility that it could have been a coincidence. So I said, well, then we got to do it again. And Swami, ever indulgently, a couple of days later, he's walking close to that lion again. And I said, Swami, formulated a question. The answer to this question is yes. Touch the lion's head as you pass. He reaches out and touches the lion's head again. And now I'm 100% convinced. Now I know he's omniscient, and the world became a very magical place, even more magical than being there, which was already pretty magical, because the ramifications of it are pretty big. And my mind jumped in again, and it said, okay, he's omniscient. Now we've got a way we can talk to God. And so, thus ensued the game that Swami and I played on that trip. And 7 times on that trip, he was so indulgent, and I would ask him a question, say if the answer is yes, touch the lion's head, and he would reach out and touch it. And it became like a treasure. It became the most valuable thing to me. And interestingly, he would never touch the lion's head if the answer wasn't yes to a question, and he would never touch the lion's head at any other time if I wasn't asking him a question, or if I was asking a question with some confusion or some doubt about whether I should be asking, because it got very tempting to ask him questions every time he was walking by that lion. And I had to restrain myself and say, no, look, he's God. He's got a lot to do. Don't bother him with little meaningless questions. Only ask him the important stuff. So only if I would be very clear and say, Swami, here's my question. If the answer is yes, touch the lion's head, he would reach out and touch. Now, after he did this about 3 times, I went to a lady that had lived there for 9 years in round 1 building. And she knew every little thing about Swami. And I went to her and I said, have you ever seen Swami touch that lion's head before the past few days? And she said, no, I've never seen him touch the lion's head before. And all the time I've been here. And I said, well, here's this game that we have going on. And then a couple of times after that, he would touch the lion's head. I would ask him a question, he'd touch the lion's head, and she'd come up to me after darshan and she'd say, hey, what did you ask him? I mean, I saw him touch that lion's head. I know you asked him something. And so I'd have to tell her what I had asked him. And then one time, Swami was coming out from the interview room or from the bhajan hall, whichever it was. And I could see he was walking close to the lion, because he didn't always walk close to the lion when he was coming out, but this time he was coming right towards it. So quickly in my head, I formulated a question, Swami, the answer to this question is yes, touch the lion's head as you pass, and he just reached out and leaned and smiled. He leaned on the lion's head, and the whole place just went nuts. And for them, it was just a spontaneous, playful moment, which it was. But it was also, for me, Swami in the most endearing way saying, everything you think, every moment, anything you request of me, I'm there. And I respond appropriately. And that is omniscience. And that is omnipresence. And that is Swami's divine love.